Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Looks like we've got some people still kind of connecting in, but we'll get ahead and get started and let them get connected and make sure we get everybody else ready to go here. So I thank you again for joining us for this month's Port Community Session. My name is Jim Armstrong. I'm in product marketing here at Port. I'm joined today by Sebastian Sebi, who many of you may know from our community and from events and from many other places. You may know Sebi, and he is joining us today as well. We also have Netta, who's helping us today with the webinar. We want to welcome all of you to this month's session. If you haven't attended one of our community sessions before, it's a chance for us to just kind of give you the latest and greatest on what's new in Port in the last month. We are starting to incorporate more kind of demonstrations of practical use cases. And so we've got a couple of great examples of that this month. As I mentioned at the top, if you're just joining, we'd love to have you share your use cases. You can either do that yourself in one of these sessions. These are meant to be, for the community, and we would love to have you participate, or we're happy to chat with you and kind of help, show off your use cases. If you're not comfortable presenting them, we're happy to work with you on other ways to share those. But we will go ahead and then kick things off. So a couple of notes: we are recording the session today, so we will share the recording later. We'll share the slides. Everything we're going to show you today is available and visible inside of Port, so you'll be able to if you want to get your hands on any of these things and start using it, you can do so straight away. In today's session, we're going to go through again the sort of latest updates from the last month in Port. We'll show some of those updates live in demos, and then we've got a couple of use cases that we want to show towards the end of today's sessions as well. If you have questions, feel free to type them in the chat box, type them in the Q&A box, and we'll answer those as we can as well. But again, really meant to be for you, so do make it interactive. All right, so we have a number of updates this month. And we'll talk through some of these in more depth. Some of the big ones, one of our top requests that we've seen from folks is being able to manage users and teams in a very flexible way. There's loads of information about users that comes from all kinds of different sources, and people want to be able to relate all that information together so they know, what all the things that a user does and all the information about a user. And the same with teams. There's lots of information about teams. Users can be part of official teams, unofficial teams, temporary teams, permanent teams. There's all kinds of sort of mixing and matching of users and teams and how they relate to all the tools and software that your company builds. And so making them blueprints will solve a lot of that. We'll dive into that. Some new customization options for Port. This one's not in the official change log yet, but it is available now, where you can customize Port. I'll show you how to do that. Speaking of users and teams is blueprints. You can, obviously, as you're creating these blueprints, you may want to start adding users, and those users may not be logged into Port yet. You may not be ready for them to log into Port yet, but you can start to flexibly manage those users now as well. And a whole bunch of other updates as well. We'll go through some of these, pagination now for the entities API when you're searching. We have lots of, really large customers who are really starting to get a lot of entities into Port, and to make Port very responsive for them and scalable for everyone. We've added pagination now to some of the API endpoints, pre-filled action URLs. I'll show you that, and whole kinds of additional integration updates this month for various partner integrations and some additional smaller updates as well. So we'll walk through a number of these in today's session. So let's talk a little bit more about users and team blueprints. As I mentioned before, and I think one of the things we see once people get into Port is that, the notion of a user as somebody that logs in is well understood, and we want to be able to do single sign-on and all those kinds of things and pull in login information for a user so that they can easily connect to Port. However, you also have all kinds of other tools that connect to Port. You probably have lots of other information that's not stored in your login sources about those users. You can see an example here, like dev skills. Are they a security champion? Are they one of our Java experts? Are they one of the handful of people that know COBOL? Maybe that's information I want to store about the user. They probably have GitHub login information. Maybe they have multiple GitHub accounts. They have Atlassian information. They have, all the tools have some information about the users. And now with Blueprints, we can relate all that information back to a single source, so we know everything about a user in one place. And the same idea with teams. Of course, we have the sort of reporting structure of an organization, and that's important. But also, in most engineering environments and most organizations in general, teams are more than just the reporting structure. There are project teams, there are, domains and all kinds of other sort of flexible, logical groupings of people that we call teams. But there's also lots of other information about teams that we want to be able to link in. So does this team have a dedicated Slack channel? Does the project have a lot of dedicated Slack channel? All those kinds of things that may relate to a team. And we want to be able to bring all that information again back into one place. It will help. All this helps not just knowing more about the users and teams, but it helps with all kinds of automation use cases. It helps with, being able to define in a more flexible way who's responsible for something, right? Who owns a particular, software asset, or who owns a particular scorecard, or things like that. Import, and by having this flexibility with users and teams, in how you relate those to each other, you can then also use that flexibility in other places in Port as well. So these are blueprints. We can take a look at these a little bit later once we get into Port, but very simply, in the screenshots here, you can see all kinds of information that's already linked in about users and teams as blueprints. Now, we also added, and this is very recent, we added the ability to customize the logo in Port. So, today, most of you have probably logged into Port. You've seen in the top left, there's our logo and our name on the portal, but a lot of customers and a lot of users want to have their own logo in Port, and you can do that very quickly now. I will show you really quickly how to do that. You can see I've already got mine set up here, but if you go into your builder view and you go into organization settings, you can change your logo, and you can change the title of the portal so it reflects your organization and your needs, and makes it feel like when people log in, it makes it feel like it's your tool and not some new thing called Port that people may not be familiar with. And you can see we automatically have light mode and dark mode set up as well. So if I flip back and forth, I can see, in that preview whether it looks nice or not, and it works in both. So very simple to do, but a very important thing, and another very popular request from our community. We've had loads of other updates this month, as you saw in some of the in the previous slide. One of them, for instance, we do have a lot of people who ingest files. So in GitHub, you may have a JSON file that we are ingesting and running and pulling data from, and it's important to make sure that that file is in the right format, so we don't mess up anything when we're ingesting. We don't overwrite data mistakenly or erase data mistakenly because we couldn't ingest the file correctly. And so we've added in the ability to do file validations via, for anything that any file that you're ingesting in Port. So we'll do a quick check when there's a pull request on one of the files that you are ingesting into Port that changes that file. You can automatically have Port do a validation check to make sure that the file is okay, and therefore make sure that you can actually successfully ingest the data the way that you think you're going to do. In Terraform, we've added the ability to add filters in the Terraform blueprints, so you can selectively choose kind of what's being implemented and being created by your Terraform plans. And so that's a nice new feature there as well. A couple of important Dynatrace updates. So we've added the ability to have, you'll see, and we talked about this a little bit with users and teams as blueprints. we want to have this idea of, every entity having, some ownership to it, not just software catalog items, but obviously software catalog items are critically important, but loads of other things could have owners and people that are responsible for it as well. So we're adding that capability. You can now, for Dynatrace entities, for instance, you can now add an owning team property, and you can map out who owns those Dynatrace entities, and you can pull teams from Dynatrace. So Dynatrace has its own notion, its own idea of teams within there, and you can bring those into Port. Of course, you can link a Dynatrace team to a Port team, so you have that relationship if that's a one-to-one mapping, but you can flexibly determine how you want to map those things back and forth as well. And you might have service level objectives that you've mapped out in Dynatrace, and you want those to be reflected in Port. You can do that now as well. Maybe you want to build some scorecards out of those, or dashboards or something in Port, so people can see that information without having to leave and go somewhere else to do it. But lots of new things with the Dynatrace integrations this month. And then I'm going to turn it over to Sebi. Sebi, you want to?
Yeah. Let me share my screen. Screens. Yes, this one. Yeah, sure. I always confused that. Yes, you should see here my browser. Okay, so what I want to show you is the new onboarding flow that we have for every new user that will sign up to Port. Okay, and the idea is really, and I will just say something. 2 weeks ago, I spoke with someone. We were discussing about platform engineering, and he was saying, hey, we often say that building portals or platform is like having Lego bricks. It's great to have Lego bricks, but what people even prefer more are Lego sets, okay? And that is exactly what we are offering with this new onboarding. We will, depending on what you choose, what you want to choose to work on, we will provide you sets, okay? We will create some entities, some catalogs for you. And of course, because Port is completely flexible and open, you can combine those blueprints, those flows. Nothing is set in stone with Port, but we help you to bootstrap quickly setting up your portal. Okay, so this is an account that I created this morning. It's a completely new account, and we will go together through the flow. It's pretty quick, but just so you got an idea. So when you log in the first time that you create your account, you will ask for a name. So I'm Sebi from Port, okay. And my organization is a Sebi live demo, for instance. Okay, there we go. And first thing what we can do now and is we can already invite some teammates if we want, okay, directly from here. So I could invite, even if they don't have a Port account. So here I'm just using the plus trick, invite one, for instance, and he will be invited. He will just be a member, okay? I can invite other teammates, but right from start, I can already invite my colleagues. Let me invite them. The second thing that you can straight do is have a Git provider, because it will be often your entry point for your portal. Start consuming repo from GitLab, GitHub, whatever. Okay, so here you can directly install it. I won't do it here, but if you click here in GitHub, it will install the GitHub application on your GitHub or etc. You can skip that. The next screen is really interesting. That's really where we will have this concept of Lego sets. I will probably be working on GitHub. So I select that. I will use some Jira probably. I have also some Snyk for my security matter. And let's say I probably have some Argo CD for my CI/CD. Okay, so I've selected those 4 elements. And now I want to start creating my portal. So now my porting is getting setting up. Okay, and in a few seconds, you will see exactly what I mean by providing you a full experience. There we go. Maybe my internet. Oh, there we go. Yes. I'm just impatient. Always when I do a live demo, I have the feeling that things are not going fast enough. I'm going to the builder. I will come back to the catalog, but just to show you what has been created for me. And again, the bar, the zoom bar is in front of it for me. Okay, there we go. If we go to the builder, you can see, wow, we already have quite a lot of stuff that has been created for us. If I go here, just we have this user, of course, that Jim told about, okay, which is connected to a team probably that is over there, okay. So that is the new team user blueprint that we already have. But since I selected GitHub, Jira, and Argo, I already have here my repo, okay, and my repo is connected to a Snyk target because I also choose Snyk, okay. So I already have a whole domain created for me that matches my needs. Of course, again, if it doesn't match exactly how you work, you can change that, you can add fields, remove relationships. But we try to make it easier for you to really have, in a few clicks, you saw that I had literally, I did 10 clicks and I got this all set up for me, okay? If you go to the catalog, okay, we also help you setting up other catalogs, okay? Organizing catalogs. So if you go here to manage my team, let me see here. You can manage your team directly from here from a catalog view. We also added, and this was a really popular one in our open demo, and it will be empty for now, but it's to plan my day. I'm a developer. I log in the morning, okay, and I can see my open pull requests. The pull requests are waiting for a review from me. I can see my different Jira issues and my different Snyk vulnerabilities, okay. So that is a really useful catalog that we had in demo mode in the open demo, but now with just a few clicks, it's available there, okay. Same thing for the self-service, okay. We created some self-service actions for you. And again, it's around users. If I want to register a new user, a new team, we provide that here as a self-service action. Register a new service. That is also quite a new flow. We made now the distinction between a GitHub repo and a service. Before that, a GitHub repo was also for us considered as a service. Now you have really the distinction between a repo and a service. And when you create a new repo, it will be ingested, but it won't be automatically mapped to a service. You can do that, of course, later if you want, but by default, it's not mapped up to automatically. So you can do that here. Here, I won't have any repo because I haven't installed the GitHub repo, but here we'll have a list of all your repos, okay, your Snyk targets, and you register your new service, and bam, you get your new service, which of course, you can find back here in your service catalog, so service, environment, workloads. Yeah, so that's it. This was just to show you the quick demo, the new onboarding. Have a look to it, play around. I think it's really great. I showed that to a customer 2 days ago, and he said, "Wow, he was really impressed." So apparently, yeah, people were waiting for that. So yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, I think it's a
share.
yeah, it's a super important feature. I think I know several folks that are here today probably are beyond this initial step, but there are also lots of folks who are still just getting started with Port, or maybe you logged in once and it's been a while and you haven't done much since. Great opportunity to kind of go back, and it gave us a big boost to how quickly you can get started with Port and get important sources of information linked together. There's a couple of questions, sorry, here that I want to answer, and I'm going to do a couple more demo things after that. So we have one. There's a question here. Can you add different light and dark mode logos in the customization? I think today you can only add one. You can have the preview of the light and dark mode with that one logo, but I don't think there's a way. I don't see a way anyway to add more than one, at least in the front end. Now maybe there's some back end magic.
That would be a nice feature request, because I can imagine that we can have a convention underscore light underscore dark and something like that. And
should be. Seems straightforward to me, person who doesn't have to write it. Write the code for it. There was another one. I'm not sure the answer on this. Basically around users and teams is blueprints and the metadata and all those kinds of things. But essentially, I think the question is, can we use queries to sort of filter, like say, so the example they've given here is they want to be able to pull user GitHub username, but we want to match some filters on that to sort of calculate what username should go into the user blueprint. I think you can do, like, I know you can do the calculations and aggregations and other things in those blueprints, just like you would with any other blueprint. So I think you can, but I don't know.
Yeah. And you can also, well, you have a GitHub user that can be linked to your user, and you can mirror the property. So, and then you can query on this property. So
yeah, there's some tricky ones because I think like GitHub and Bitbucket and others don't necessarily have, like, the natural thing would be just relate them based on an email address, but sometimes
email,
some of those don't have an email address, but there are loads of other properties I think we could match on. But I think you also have the aggregation and calculation properties and things that you could potentially use there too. Let's see, one more question. How do you add through the UI catalogs and services, catalog services for teams and users with an existing org? How do you add through the UI catalog/services for teams and users within the existing org?
Oh, so that's probably, it's more or less related to how do I migrate to the new structure, maybe as well.
That could be, yeah. It's a good call out if it is. If it's not, I'm going to call it out anyway because I think it's important. If you the users and teams as blueprints is new. If you started with port before January 15th, so January 14th or before, you'll be using the old sort of objects for users and teams. And there is a migration guide that's available that will, number one, go through and do a check to see that everything will migrate automatically. And if it won't, it'll tell you which things you might need to do some manual work on. But if everything or whatever can be migrated automatically, there's also a step to do that as well. But it'll tell you manual steps to take before you do the automatic migration. So there's a migration tool. And I think Sebi just linked it there in the chat. So they'll do the check for you. It will also help you migrate over to the new users and teams as blueprints. So important thing, in May, I think on May 1st, actually, we plan to cut over to the new format for everyone. So it's an important thing for people to check and go through before we do it across everything else that hasn't been done yet. All right, so let me go and keep those questions coming, but let me show a couple more things here. One, this is a simple update. It was listed on the page there, but kind of a nice little thing, I think, as well, where we can, so we have self-service actions in Port. You click on it, you get a form to fill out, and you type in whatever you need, and off you go. And something happens, whatever you want to automate. You can automate in Port, obviously, but sometimes you can pre-fill those forms for people, right? If, let's say, you're in Slack and you've got a workflow in Slack, and somebody opens it and they've put some information into Slack. Well, there's no need for them to re-put that information into Port. We can, ingest that information and pre-fill action forms. We could do it in all kinds of places, Slack just being one of those examples. So, for instance, this is probably a horrible example, but I have an action to create a GitHub secret, and let's say I want to at least pre-fill the name. The name's maybe not such a bad thing to pre-fill. You probably would not pre-fill the actual secret itself. This little tool will, if I typed things correctly, which I apparently didn't. What did I forget there? One of my quotes is probably. We'll create a URL which can be used, right? So this URL will then have everything pre-filled. There's full instruction. You don't have to use this little generator. It's just nicer to see, but there's all kinds of ways that you can generate these yourself using this JS URL library to get these pre-filled action templates. But if you do it and you have that link available to someone, then that will automatically take them into Port, into the self-service action, and pre-fill, whatever fields you have in that form. So nice little simplification step, sort of speeding things up a little bit for folks. let me pop back over here. So one other thing I want to show too. This is a bit of a show and tell. This was one that we had chatted with a customer about. They were really interested in. It's become a bigger thing for us now. We've done a couple of webinars on this, but in case people haven't seen it, we have lots of folks using Copilot, using other Gen AI tools. There's a bunch of them out there, seemingly new ones every day. But people want to know, how effective those tools are, who's using them, but also is it having an impact on the overall, engineering organization as well. And so we've set up an example of this using Copilot. Again, you don't have to use Copilot. Anything that will have some stats that you can bring into Port, you can use. In Copilot, what GitHub supplies is information like how many people are using it, what teams are using it, Copilot in this case, how engaged they are, what languages they're using, how many lines have been suggested and accepted, and all those kinds of things, right? So good statistics on the usage of Copilot. And what we want to do in something like Port is be able to see, who's actually using those and marry that up with things like engineering metrics. Maybe it's throughput, maybe it's bugs and MTTR and other things like that, right? Is your Gen AI tool creating a lot more bugs? That's one of the sort of fears that people have. Is it making your developers faster? That's one of the big questions people have. And so now you can bring that information all together into Port. Let me make this a little bit bigger so it's a little bit easier to see. But here we've got the information from the Copilot APIs. We're bringing in all the stats about usage of Copilot in our organization. And then we have the metrics here on deployment frequency and the mean time to resolve issues. And so we can start to correlate that information inside of Port and match those two things up. And you can actually see, you could do this at the team level, you could do it across your entire engineering organization and see. Again, this is just an example using GitHub. If you have any other tool that provides similar metrics, you could also create that inside of Port. So a really nice way to start to see how these types of tools are in fact impacting your engineering organization. And of course, we hope that things will all point in the right way, and that you're getting great value out of your Gen AI tools. One thing I do want to point out, it's not here, but it is new in Port. So this is showing essentially hard metrics, right? Quantitative metrics. We have all the usage of GitHub coming straight from the GitHub APIs and their tracking. We have the engineering metrics that are coming from Port's tracking how many deployments you have and how frequently those happen, and the number of bugs, pulling in that data from all the different sources you might have. Another source of data is qualitative data. And so you probably want to ask your developers, do they like the tool that they're using? Is there a tool that they would prefer? Are they finding that they feel like they have to do too many corrections to those tools? All of that could come in as a survey. And so you can actually now I've got to find it, create surveys inside of Port. And we had one up there. Yeah, right above.
Right there.
Yeah. So you can create surveys now inside of Port, and we've got a link to that in the docs as well. These are just general, like, how do you feel about using Port type surveys? But you can create a survey for anything you want. Surveys can be versioned, so you might run one quarterly, and you want to compare last quarter to this quarter, and on and on. There's all types of questions you can ask. Rate things on a scale of 1 to 5. Pick multiple choices. All those kinds of things that you would probably expect in a standard sort of survey, you can now add to Port as part of the metrics that you're capturing and collecting as well. Sorry, sir, Sevi, I think you were saying something too. It kind of stepped on you there.
Oh, no. I was just no. I was just agreeing.
Yeah.
And
so I think with something like the AI, I would probably add in a survey too, just to ask, for people that are using Copilot, do they like it, or whatever tool it is, right? Do you like the tool? Is it helping you? Does it make you faster? What part of your job does it make you faster? Do you find that you spend too much time correcting it? On and on and on. You need more training for it, all those kinds of things that you could ask that are more sort of qualitative answers that would help, sort of judge and put a better sort of lens on the quantitative data that you're getting from other sources as well. But again, you can run surveys on anything in Port. What's the next thing? What's the biggest pain that you have right now that you want us to solve next? All those kinds of things about an engineer's daily life that you might want to gather input on, so you can decide what to fix for them. All right, I think that takes us through everything for this month.
And on the AI part, last week our CEO Zohar and Amri from the CSM team did a webinar about this topic. Maybe some of you were there, but I think the replay somewhere. I don't have the link. Maybe Nita, you have.
Also in our YouTube channel and also in our website. So I shortly send the link. So if anyone want to rewatch it.
Yeah.
Yep. And the example I just showed and the surveys as well are also in our demo site. So you can go into our demo site, see how we've set those up. It's just demo.getport.io, and you can see how we've set things up. Obviously GitHub has their documentation on their API. If there's other information that's useful to you, you can of course make it your own and show what you want to show. Loads of great things this month. Thanks, Sebi, for joining us. There's one other question here. You showed us some survey results.
And there's one before that we missed just before about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the AWS resources. Yeah.
Yeah. And for this one, honestly, I think the best thing to do, Yasser, is maybe to ask your question in our community Slack. So you can give us a bit more context, maybe your current blueprints, because it could be multiple things. And I think it will be a bit hard together to debug that, but for sure, we will help you. I can see that you are on the community Slack. So go in the community help and add so much information as you can, and someone will help you.
Yep. And then the last one on survey results. So does some survey results to be shown in Port. Is there any way to create and serve the survey to Port users? Yes, I think the answer is yes. I mean, I think maybe I might be sort of overthinking it, but the idea is that you would create a survey that would be, it's exactly what it's for, is to show surveys to Port users. And again, flexible, you can ask whatever types of questions you want, really. But the idea is to be able to collect that information inside of Port, so you can see. But yeah, you definitely would show those surveys to Port users.
Yeah. And the server itself, it's nothing more than a self-service action. Okay, so basically we are using the self-service action mechanism to create the survey, so the users can answer the survey by just clicking a self-service action. And of course, then you can build a dashboard so they can all see the results, or you just release the results once the survey is done. But yeah, it's all doable.
Yep. Yeah, and just one other note here as well. We do have some survey examples that we will be posting in the docs very soon, so you can actually see some surveys you can copy and use those surveys, and of course you can tune and adjust and make them your own, but just to give you some good starting reference points. But again, they're blueprints. These are things that we can all easily share. So if you have a great survey that's really helped you or uncovered something you think was very interesting that would be useful to others, we'd love to have those things. You can share it in the community Slack. If it's something that you want to share live in a future session, whether it's surveys or anything else, again, we'd love to have you on one of these future community sessions with us and sharing what you've built with Port too. So with that, I think we will wrap up. Again, if you have other ideas, things that you want to see in Port, new features like a light mode and a dark mode icon separately in Port, or anything else that you think is important, our roadmap is public and you can add feature requests to it. And you can see what's currently being worked on as well. The release notes go into the changelog available via the same site, so you can see all the release notes there, posted monthly. And of course, we have implementation guides. All the things that we showed you today are in the docs. partner integrations and all those kinds of updates. We'll have implementation guides and examples and things that are available in our documentation as well. We chatted last time about the AI assistant in Docs. That AI assistant now appears inside the app as well. So if you're inside Port kind of messing around in the builder and have a question, you can just ask directly inside the builder, and the AI will go and help you search the docs and pull relevant information, give you examples as well, so you don't have to pop back and forth. So all kinds of improvements there as well. But I think we will wrap it up. Sebi, thank you again for joining us. Netta, thank you very much as well for joining us and getting us all coordinated in here today. And we will share the recording and the slides with everyone later. Appreciate it. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.